After studying this module, you shall be able to know about what are various coping mechanisms, identify the different types of coping mechanisms, understand the available coping resources, learn about hardiness, an important personality style needed for effective coping, and understand the concept of emotional resilience. Coping is the process of attempting to manage the demands created by stressful events. Stressful events are that are looked upon as taxing or being beyond a person's resources. These problems could arise from both personal as well as interpersonal reasons. The efforts to manage stress or method of coping can be external or action oriented as well as internal or intrapsychic. They seek to manage, tolerate or reduce the demands of a stressful environment. Coping resources include relatively individual differences in personality traits like optimism, a sense of self-efficacy and self-esteem. The external factors that contribute to a sense of an ability to cope with stressors include having an excellent social support system. Coping resources can be marked by behaviors like taking direct action or confronting emotional responses to a stressor, and ones marked by avoidance such as withdrawal or denial. Coping efforts may be adaptive or maladaptive. The form that coping processes assume affects how successful the resolution of a stressor will be. In literature, we come across different categories of coping strategies, which we will discuss in the next section of this module. Categories of coping strategies. Many different types of coping strategies have been identified by researchers over the years. These strategies have been classified into broad categories. Some of these categories are appraisal-focused coping strategies. These occur when persons modify the way they think about the situation. The negative or maladaptive strategies here could be denial or rationalization, and the positive or adaptive appraisal-focused strategies can include humor or altering goals. As a person grows older, there arise situations in which the person makes unrealistic goals, not taking into account the physical changes that have taken place. In such situations, altering goals rather than denial would help the elderly person cope better with the situation. Problem-focused coping strategies. Sheffer and Moose in 1992 have defined problem-focused coping strategies as trying to analyze the crisis logically, evaluating it comprehensively, looking for options, and taking actions to solve the problem. Emotion-focused coping involves the person's efforts to resolve or minimize the problem by managing the accompanying emotional issues. These coping strategies focus on changing the perception of the individual regarding the problem. Emotion-focused strategies include releasing of emotions, managing hostile feelings through activities like distraction or meditation, and progressive relaxation technique. Folkman and Lazarus identified 5 emotion-focused strategies. These are disclaiming, escape avoidance, accepting responsibility, self-control, and positive self-appraisal. A variety of ways have been suggested by other researchers. These include forming or increasing social support system, positive reappraisal of the stressful situation, distancing, and humor. Most people use a combination of these techniques to deal with problems arising due to old age. A common situation requiring attention in old age is unrealistic physical expectations from self. The person is unable to realize or recognize that he or she is unable to do the tasks that they were able to complete with ease earlier. The elderly person can be helped to cope by reappraisal of the situation and see it in a positive light, and using that time for other activities like hobbies or social calls on phone or going to a nearby friend and relatives. Humor is also an adaptive or positive technique that helps in coping. It is one of the most effective coping methods and helps people come to terms with difficult situations. It helps the elderly person in reappraisal of the situation. Coping resources. It has been seen that commonly found distress in the elderly include grief, depression and anxiety result in reduced coping resources for managing the challenges of daily life. This has been found to be related to lack or inadequacy of coping resources. For example, depression is marked by pessimism, low self-esteem, a low sense of control, and adverse effects on social relationships. The inability to establish and maintain normal social relations with others and feeling loss of control on the direction of their life are central to old age. Poor coping resources associated with physical and mental aging in some cases may represent symptoms, as in the case of dementia and Alzheimer's. In other cases, physical risk factors as in hypertension, diabetes, etc., and in other instances reduced social support, all put a strain on the coping resources of the elderly person. Researchers have found that stable individual differences in coping resources that improve the ability to manage stressful events and are associated with lesser distress result in better health outcomes. Among these are optimism, psychological control or mastery, self-esteem, and social support. In addition to their roles as antecedents of specific coping strategies, coping resources can also have direct effects on both psychological and physical health. Need for coping resources. Depression and anxiety are a part of the negative stereotyping of the elderly. It is expected that as the individuals age and encounter the aspects of retirement and the empty nest, depression and dissatisfaction would set in. However, research has shown that it is not the case. Most elderly persons do not show symptoms of depression or dissatisfaction even in situations of personal loss, loss of spouse, or somatic problems. Hence, stating that old age is stressful in itself or stress is the result of declining health has not been empirically proved. In fact, the elderly persons have been found to experience less stress as compared to their working juniors or the stress that they were undergoing pre-retirement. It has been found that stress is not the result of expected life changes. It is the unexpected situations that cause stress, depression, and grief. The events that occur on a regular basis can also become stressful. Situations like losing keys, transportation, misplacing spectacles, increasing difficulty in walking, or climbing steps are more likely to result in feelings of stress. Due to these everyday irritants, elderly persons need a huge repertoire of coping resources. It is remarkable to see how older people manage to deal with these stressors. Gender differences in aging. Gender differences refer to the difference in the way males and females respond to difficult situations. Research has found that males usually develop stress due to their job situations and career issues, whereas females feel stressed due to relationship issues. Since the source of stress is different for males and females, the coping strategies they use are also different. The males use appraisal-focused and problem-focused strategies, whereas the females use emotion-focused and social-focused strategies. The males tend to look at the problem and try to find solutions, but the females have been found to attempt to manage the accompanying emotions either by themselves or with the help of social support. Women have also been seen to have larger social support system as compared to the men. However, in the elderly, research has found that there is very little difference in the coping strategies in males and females. As the men and women grow older, there is a decrease in the elderly men using problem-focused or appraisal-focused strategies. Both elderly men and women increasingly use emotion-focused and social support for coping with stress. Personality style effective in coping. Hardiness. Concept of hardiness. Psychological hardiness refers to three interrelated personality characteristics of the 3C, which are commitment, control, and challenge, which together appear to protect individuals from the negative health effects of stress. Commitment is the ability to persist at whatever one is doing. It also refers to the person's sense of self-efficacy, which indicates the person's belief that one is capable of achieving the goal even when stresses increase to very high levels. Control is the ability to feel and act as if one is in charge of the situation, even in the face of the varied contingencies of life. Challenge is the belief that change rather than stability is normal in life and that the anticipation of those changes are perceived as interesting incentives for the person's growth rather than threats to the stability. Therefore, when confronted with stressful changes, disruptions or failures, hardy individuals react not only with a renewed attempt to control the situation, but also perceive the experience as interesting, which is commitment, and focus on the growth in knowledge and wisdom that is taking place, which is challenge. Barton in 2006, while giving importance to the three characteristics emphasized by Kobasa and Maddy, gives a more global understanding of the concept of hardiness by considering it to be more of a personality style. The hardy personality, in theory, is accompanied by an innate response to appraise and cope with the stressor effectively. Specifically, hardy individuals first appraise the life stressor as less threatening before transforming the stressor through adaptive coping mechanisms into a positive and challenging experience. Reduced perceptions of life stress have frequently been found to be associated with high levels of hardiness in all age groups. Greater positive perceptions of life stressors have also been found to go hand in hand with the hardy personality, therefore indirectly supporting the effective use of positive coping mechanisms. The use of adaptive coping strategies and positive perception of problems have been found to be a part of the hardy personality. The positive nature of the hardy personality is accompanied by a high level of self-confidence due to the coping styles used, which reflects the individual's belief in their own effectiveness. This provides the impetus to mentally stay in the situation and confront its demands and consequences. This unique personality characteristic is effective in people of all age groups, including old age. Central to the disposition of hardiness are the coping strategies that hardy individuals adopt. Strategies that reflect a hardy individual's belief in their own effectiveness during demanding situations, as well as their ability to make good use of other human and environmental resources. Specifically, coping for these individuals consists of turning stressful events into opportunities for their personal growth. Hardiness has been found to be associated with fewer mood disturbances like tension, depression, anger, fatigue, and confusion among the elderly. More esteem-related affect has also been found in the elderly with the characteristic of hardiness. Research has also revealed that individuals high in hardiness demonstrated reduced perceptions of stressful events, which in turn were inversely related to emotional exhaustion. Hence, hardiness is conceptualized to influence the relationship between stressful situations and stress-related illness among the elderly through a dynamic process that includes positive appraisal and adaptive coping mechanisms. Hardiness and social support. According to research, the relationship between social support and hardiness cannot be denied. The effect of hardiness, that is, hardy versus non-hardy, would be different depending upon the level of social support. Although longitudinal data are needed to examine more explicitly the directionality of the relation between these constructs, there are different ways to conceptualize such an interaction. First, there may be a compensatory relation such that hardiness compensates for the lack of social support, and the difference between individuals who are high versus low on social support is smaller for high hardy participants than for low hardy participants. Also in this case, the increased social support of low hardy individuals would contribute to more optimal well-being outcomes relative to those with decreased social support. Secondly, the relation between hardiness and social support may be synergistic in nature, such that the effect of hardiness and social support in combination is qualitatively different than the effect of either construct alone. In this case, hardy individuals may be better able to mobilize support, thus being high on hardiness would be more helpful when one has more social resources. At the same time, increased social support for low hardy individuals may actually be detrimental due to their inability to utilize that support rather than a lack of support itself. Hence, it can be said with a great amount of conviction that although elderly people benefit by having a good social support system, the personality construct of hardiness is far from important for a healthy old age. Emotional resilience. From the concept of hardiness, another concept of resilience emerges, as resilience is the product of hardiness. The concept of emotional The concept of emotional resilience has been described as the general capacity for a flexible and resourceful adaptation to external and internal stressors. Personality attributes consistently found to be associated with resistance to stress include the ability to reflect and positive responses when confronted with new and challenging situations. Behavioral implications of this term include resourcefulness, flexibility, active engagement, and a repertoire of appropriate problem-solving strategies. Thus, emotional resilience has clear implications for individuals' adaptive capacities under conditions of environmental conflict or uncertainty. In the simple terms, resilience is the individual's ability to bounce back under conditions of adversity. The coping style that they have been found to use is the transformational style, wherein they transform the stressful situation into a less stressful or a more manageable situation. While much attention has been given to resilience within the context of coping with extreme adversity, emotional resilience can also be expected to play a part in the daily lives of the elderly persons. Tugare and Fredrickson in 2004 explained that psychological resilience refers to the effective coping and adaptation when faced with hardship or adversity. Resilient individuals are perceived as optimistic, zestful, and energetic in their approaches to life, are open to new experiences, and have high level of positive emotions. Bonner 2004 has also pointed out that people commonly demonstrate resilience when coping with particularly demanding situations such as bereavement experienced by the elderly caused by the loss of spouse. Recent research work suggests that resilience is a common trait, not a rare one, held by a few extraordinary individuals. It results from the operation of basic human adaptational styles and has been described as ordinary magic by Maston. It has been found that resilient individuals also experience anger, frustration, anxiety, fear and depression at least some of the time, but they intermix the negative emotions with a range of positive emotions. Resilient individuals do not merely replace unpleasant with pleasant feelings and exhibit no concern, but offset negative experiences with positive ones. New skills and knowledge can be learned, leading to more effective functioning. Resources available to cope with future events can become stronger. If resilience is a common trait amongst people generally, there is every reason to suggest that it should be present in the elderly as well. Although it is difficult to say how many or what percentage of the elderly population has the trait of resilience, research has found that resilient elderly persons have lesser degree of depression and anxiety. They usually bounce back, cope with unpleasant feelings and situations, and use these experiences as stepping stones. They are better able to adjust to the physical and financial adversities post-retirement and have been found to do better than those with low resilience in aspects like activities of daily life. Good self-esteem and perceived control may be considered to be core resources that contribute to a resilient personality. Personal resilience is also mediated by an individual's appraisal of stress and the coping mechanisms that are used when confronting stressful situations. Furthermore, resilience is not a static concept. Resilience is therefore perceived by some to be an adaptive state, not just a personality trait. Summary. Coping can be understood as an attempt to manage demands created by stressful events. Stressful events are those that are looked upon as being beyond a person's resources. The efforts to manage stress or methods of coping can be external or action-oriented and internal or intrapsychic. Coping resources include individual differences in personality traits like optimism, sense of self-efficacy, and high self-esteem. External coping factors include having an excellent social support system. Many different types of coping strategies have been identified by researchers. These strategies have been classified into categories of appraisal-focused coping strategies, problem-focused coping strategies, and emotion-focused coping strategies. Research has found that distress in the elderly results in reduced coping resources for managing the challenges of daily life. It has also been found that stable individual differences in coping resources that improve the ability to manage stressful events and is associated with lesser distress result in better health outcomes. Depression and anxiety are expected to be seen in the elderly. Research has shown that this is a part of the negative stereotyping of the elderly. The elderly experience depression only in the case of unexpected situations and not as a result of expected life changes. However, irritants that occur on a regular basis, like misplacing keys and increasing difficulty in walking or climbing steps, are more likely to result in feelings of stress. Gender differences in the coping strategies used have been found in young adults, but very little differences have been found as people grow older. Both genders use emotion and social focus techniques. Psychological hardiness is an important personality characteristic for effective coping. This is a combination of commitment, control, and challenge. The hardy personality is accompanied by an innate sense of appraisal of a situation and the ability to cope with stress effectively. One outcome of hardiness is emotional resilience, which is described as the general capacity for a flexible and resourceful adaptation to external and internal stressors. In common terms, it is the ability of the individual to bounce back in the face of adversity. Good self-esteem and perceived control may be considered to be the core resources that contribute to a resilient personality. Thank you.